Hello and welcome back to the Motorsport Baithak podcast. I'm your host DD and joining me once again today is my friend and your co-host Vedant. On this episode, we will be talking about the Indycar GMR Grand Prix held this past Saturday, where Romain Grosjean started from pole and finished second on the podium, and Rinus VeeKay took the win at the Indianapolis road course. So let's grab some chai, take our seats, ready your opinions, and dive right into the conversation. Vedant, before anything else, we have to acknowledge what Romain Grosjean has done this past weekend. He has made the entire F1 paddock, the entire F1 community stand up and look at IndyCar like never before.
Definitely.
And this might be the point where F1 fans become IndyCar fans too, because we've had F1 drivers go back or cross over to IndyCar, but I can't remember a time where F1 fans took such notice of their accomplishments, whether it be Takuma Sato, Rossi, anyone else, Marcus Ericsson, never had so much hype. But Romain Grosjean, after his crash, what a story, what a comeback. What are your thoughts?
Definitely. As you said, Formula One in our time has never, like, the wider Formula One community has never looked at IndyCar as they are right now, and it's mostly due to Romain's comeback. But I mean, in the third race itself, it's only his third race, and taking it to pole, incredible stuff from him.
Absolutely, absolutely. And nothing less from Rinus VeeKay too, starting 6th or 7th on the race and then finishing first. Insane pace from Rinus VeeKay there, throughout the race, except towards the end. And you could almost say if it weren't for, Roman faltering on his alternate tires, on the black stripe tires, and not getting stuck behind Sebastian
Yeah,
Bourdais, yeah, it would have been a photo finish between the two.
yeah, definitely. That again brings up the point of blue flags that we covered in our previous podcast. But definitely that race, those two up front were battling it out throughout, and it could have been a better finish.
Absolutely, and Alex Palou also had a little bit of a moment there in the middle of the race where he lost out to Rinus VeeKay, even though he had been battling it out at the front of the grid with Roman the entire race. Roman also had a moment in the pits. His pit crew took a little bit longer on his second pit stop, which gave the lead to Rinus VeeKay virtually. And then Roman did struggle on those black striped tires, like I mentioned before. But all in all, a great race from Roman. What was also surprising was this was like the first time Roman was heading the field on a rolling start in IndyCar ever. And he had to do it twice at the beginning of the race, twice in the first 15 laps. And it was great, he didn't falter. He just sent it, and he was leading the race by quite a margin by the end of the first lap. I remember when the race started the first time, at the start of the race, he was leading by like a second and a half by the end of the first lap. And after the yellow flag, when he took off again, he was leading by 2 seconds by the end of the first lap. So, Roman has it down. And I think there was a comment too from Romain Grosjean earlier in the week before the race that, he is definitely looking at IndyCar as a long-term career prospect now, and not just as a 1 or 2 season racing thing for himself. As he like, I think he mentioned buying a house. In the US, he was looking to buy a house. So we can definitely see Romain Grosjean do really well in IndyCar in his time to come.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we have to give appreciation to his family and to his friends and the people around him, because after that crash, it would have been very difficult for Roman himself to make that decision to go into IndyCar, and for his family to support him. But I think they can now see that it is paying off. And as far as a future in IndyCar goes, definitely, because we have seen, like, Juan Pablo Montoya is coming back to IndyCar. He raced this past weekend and will race at the Indy 500. So we know that in IndyCar you are never too old per se, and Roman has a lot more potential, a lot more career ahead of him. So it will be great to see him, if he stays with IndyCar.
Absolutely, and he is definitely enjoying it. All his social media, and all his coverage and all his interviews, he looks chuffed, and he's really happy to be there with his family, traveling across America and racing in IndyCar. But now let's talk about Rinus VeeKay. Another story like Esteban Ocon, his family put everything on the line to get him to IndyCar, and he is now the only driver on the grid to have won at all levels of Indy, right? And it goes to show that IndyCar provides a great opportunity for young budding drivers who are talented and who have got what it takes to be an IndyCar champion. That the IndyCar system provides them ample opportunity to achieve their dream, and all in all, level up IndyCar's talent pool in general, and provide the fans with the best racing possible.
Yeah, certainly. And I mean, he won at US Formula 2000, the Indy Pro 2000, Indy Lights, and now in IndyCar. So the four tiers of Road to Indy racing. But like, of course, he's a great talent and he's a great racer as we saw. But that brings me, the Road to Indy structure brings me to another topic, that IndyCar right now is full of young budding drivers, and out of the 5 races so far, 3 have been won by people below 25. So
and all of them have been first time winners.
So it's going to be a great future for IndyCar, especially now that Formula One fans and international fans as such are getting more involved after Romain and after McLaren investing
in Pato Ward and Arrow McLaren team. Yeah, absolutely. And we have been guilty of this too. We've been, ever since the IndyCar season started, we've been talking about reviewing the IndyCar season, reviewing the IndyCar races, but it hasn't happened until Romain put it on poll this weekend. So we are as much guilty of it too. But again, just the amount of emotion that you could see on the TV with Rinus VeeKay's dad and mom there at Victory Lane. And just Rinus VeeKay, just so happy. 20 years old. Another weird stat, 15th May, great day for Dutch racing and Dutch open wheel racing. 15th May is the same date. Max Verstappen won his first Formula 1 race, and 15th May is again the day Rinus VeeKay won his first IndyCar race. So a lot to come. And like I mentioned in my last podcast, is this Red Bull's answer to Formula 1? Because Rinus VeeKay's parents did bring him over to Formula 1 because they couldn't afford his his road to Formula 1 basically. They couldn't afford Formula 2, Formula 3, so they were like, you want to support our son and you want to support his dream, so let's come over to America and let's go for that IndyCar title instead. But is this the stepping stone that Rinus VeeKay needed to go head to head with Max Verstappen? Because both of them know each other. They're not exactly friends, but they know each other. And I'm pretty sure, with the Dutch community, with the Dutch racing community being so tight-knit, I'm sure there'll be a lot more Dutch fans looking at F1, looking at IndyCar now, I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we know there's a lot of potential in IndyCar, but that is, I believe, another whole different topic, because we have heard from Mario Andretti commenting about Colton Herta, and we know that Pato Award will be testing it in Abu Dhabi for McLaren. So that potential for IndyCar race winners and IndyCar drivers to come over to Formula 1 is huge, and we have seen it happen in the past. But it's a very different topic, and I think we'll have to have a whole other conversation for it.
Absolutely, and that is exactly what we are planning for. Please keep your eyes peeled for our next podcast. That will be Miami GP, and a US driver. Will F1 finally break America? So keep an eye out for that, and we will definitely talk about why we don't have as much American talent, or why we don't have crossover between IndyCar and Formula 1 in terms of drivers and sponsorship and teams and all such things. So yeah, but you've got to feel for Jack Harvey. He was running top 5 in the championship after the first 3 races, and he's had a couple bad races, by no fault of his own. He had a bad pit stop, had a punctured tire somehow, and then had to make another stop, and he felt at the back end of the grid. And then even before then, a race previous to this, Jack Harvey had a hub failure, because of which he couldn't finish the race. But he has been consistently running in the top 10 in the races, and fighting for the win, in fact. And we saw the same thing from Jack Harvey in the first half of the race against Romain Grosjean. So he's a talent to watch out for too. And the only downside to Jack Harvey's title fight or title quest is that his team isn't as experienced. So that is another thing that they are trying to catch up on and be a better team altogether.
Yeah, but for me, the biggest talent, striking out right now is Alex Palou. He's second in the championship. He has a win and a podium, and he's fighting Scott Dixon for that championship as of now. So it will be interesting to see how this championship progresses, because we have a lot of competition, and we know IndyCar can be competitive. Not everyone who is leading right now will be in the top 5 at the end of the season, and not everyone who is behind will stay behind. So it's going to be a very, very interesting championship with a lot of talent, top talent in the front of the grid. So yeah, let's.
Absolutely, and Alex Palou did have a great race. He came home in third, holding back Joseph Newgarden only a second behind him. And Joseph Newgarden, I think, is a 2-time IndyCar champion. So he's got the experience under his belt, and he knows how to win a championship. So right now the standings, we obviously have Scott Dixon, who's literally, the god of IndyCar, you could call him, at 176 points, followed closely by Alex Palou in second at 163, followed by Joseph Newgarden, Pato O'Ward, and Graham Rahal. I think Graham Rahal's at 137 points, and then Rinus VeeKay in sixth. Now, Graham Rahal also had an interesting race. His engineer spotted him early on in the race, and Rahal was really not happy about it. But at the end, he did come through the field, and I think he had a top 5 finish. I'm not exactly sure, but I think at the end, his strategy did pay off. Which brings me to another point. The aspect of having the fueling as as a part of the strategy does provide some interesting strategy variances in IndyCar. I've been watching IndyCar for a long time, and I knew this existed, but up until this past race, I never really got into the strategy aspect of it. I never really sat down and paid a lot of attention, except once a year during the Indy 500, and it just goes to show how much difference can fueling being a part of the strategy can make in the race.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we saw it in Formula 1 also before 2010, that refueling, they used to do 3-stop, 4-stop strategies and win races. So definitely refueling is very, very interesting aspect of IndyCar, which of course we don't see in Formula 1, so we can't compare it. But yeah, it does bring mixed results per se, and mix things up.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I mean, even if you look at the race, the GMR Grand Prix from a racing point of view, there were overtakes. Definitely, there was racing action. There's always racing action in IndyCar, but it was nothing extraordinary at the front of the field, like you would want in Formula 1, right? But it was still an interesting race, strategy-wise, and I think that's what makes racing interesting, at least for a fan like me. But up next, we have the Indy 500 in 2 weekends' time. So keep your eyes peeled for that, and I will be most likely, in the grandstands for the Indy 500. So I'm really excited and looking forward to it. It'll be my first IndyCar race ever, so I'm really looking forward to it. Unfortunately, like we know, Romain won't be racing in the Indy 500. He won't be racing any ovals this year, but that might be something that we would get to see next year. However, like you mentioned earlier, Juan Pablo Montoya will be racing the Indy 500, and he is one to watch out for apparently.
Yeah.
So we'll see. No Fernando Alonso this year, so kind of disappointing. But again, yep. Last year's winner Takuma Sato, so another person to watch out for. He's also now a 2-time Indy 500 champion, so don't count him out either. And I'm just excited. I'm just buzzing. I wish I could have gone down and seen the qualifying too, because I think the qualifying is really interesting for the Indy 500. But I'll be around the Indy area. However, I won't be at Indianapolis for the qualifying session. I will be going out with my friends, watching some sled pull action around the Indy area. So that should be exciting to watch out on our Instagram page for more of that over the next 2 weekends. Anything else from you, Vedant, regarding IndyCar and things to come?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I haven't watched a lot of IndyCar because of the time difference, but with Romain going there, and with he getting success so early in his career, I believe that I myself and a lot of other fans are going to Formula 1 fans are going to pay much more attention to to IndyCar, and I think that is just great for motorsport, because as I probably have said in some earlier podcast, that we need to be motorsport fans we can't just be Formula One fans, or we can't just be NASCAR fans as such. We are motorsport
Absolutely.
fans. So watching these different series, and as we were discussing earlier, there is a lot of motorsport in the world every single weekend.
I mean, absolutely. Like, we did have F1 and FE this weekend, and we were thinking, there's not a lot of motorsport going around. But if you really think about it, you had Indycar, you have NASCAR, which is literally going on right now. You had ELMS, the European Le Mans Series, and you had the Nordic Rallycross, and you had like a bunch of other motorsport from around the world. So there's never a dearth of motorsport on any given weekend. There's always something going on, and if you're really into it, you'll find yourself something. And if nothing, there's always some sim racing going on if you're into that kind of stuff. But yeah, like you said, IndyCar season, if you haven't followed it yet, start following it now. This is a great time to get into it, because in the last 5 races, we have had five different winners and 3 first-time winners. So no one knows what's going to happen, and maybe you'll even forget about watching Formula One after all the action going on in IndyCar. So yeah, that's all from our side for this podcast. Thank you, Vedant, for joining me once again, and I look forward to talking to you next week. Thank you so much.